Hey everybody, it's Michelle from Seams Like Quilting. And our last series on panel improvisation was actually pretty popular. People really liked it, so we thought we'd do another one. And this time I think we'll start a little bit at more of this conception stage. So this panel is very different than the last one. So this is a Christmas panel. And it is from the collection Christmas is in Town from Riley Blake Designs. Does everybody know how much great information there is on the selvage? So you get the manufacturer, you usually get some sort of stocking number or SKU. So if you're ever, with people who cut off the selvage right away as soon as they get fabric, I don't know, man, it'd be really hard for me to track my stash without the SKU numbers on this. Anyway, then you usually have a collection name. Sometimes you'll have the designer's name. You'll have the year. This is actually also really important. A lot of times collections get launched maybe 5 or 6 years later, but in a different colorway. So the year is actually really important. And then you'll have some sort of symbolic representation of every color that's in the print. So they put this on the selvage, and you can see the holes. That's from keeping the plain white stock or the non-printed fabric on the rollers on the machine. Like, it holds everything down and stretches it so that the print goes on correctly. But every single color that's in this print is on the selvage. So if you are looking at a collection of fabric that and you're wondering if this red goes with it and it's kind of hard to tell, or if the blue or the green is right, you can actually use the number code or the color coding on the selvage. There's great information on the selvage for you to see. But let's just take a look at this panel really quick. So this is, like I said, Christmas is in Town from Riley Blake. And what I love about this panel is it's Christmas, and yes, it's traditional colors and all of those things, excuse me, but it is also, it's got kind of this sense of humor. I love this VW bus with Santa driving and the reindeer in the back. But here's the challenging thing about this panel, right? All these little vignettes, so I'm calling it a vignette, like these little pictures, right? They're all different sizes. And they're connected with this garland, right? But even that is a different size. There's no way to cut this cleanly. So sometimes panels will come and they'll be in a square, they'll be in a panel. But this one is kind of mixed. Now, I could just use the whole thing all together, put a border around it and call it a day, use it as a panel, as a single panel. But I'm looking at this and I think this would be much more interesting if there were a little bit of breathing room in between each of these little pictures. So we've got this fun little house with the snowman. Then you've got this house that's got the pretty candles in the window, and even just this little set of trees is a nice little picture, a nice little vignette. And then of course we've got the church and the VW bus. We've got the manger that's this Christmas pageant tonight, right? It's just really, really cute. But I want to give each of these just a little bit more room. Instead of thinking about this like a neighborhood, I kind of want to think about each of these individually. Well, that's going to be super tough, right? Because even if I fussy cut them all, let's say I fussy cut this one right here. Let me grab my big ruler. Where's my big ruler? I had it sitting right here. Well, anyway, we'll take the small one. That's fine. So this, if I just do top, tip to bottom here, we're about 10 inches, and then maybe 6-ish inches wide, depending on exactly what I want to include. If I want to include this whole star, I'm going to kind of come out a little bit more. But then this one here is, yeah, I mean, even conservatively 12 inches wide, and then again, even conservatively 13, 14 inches tall. So how would I make a block out of this one and make a block out of this one, and then make them so that they'll like be the same size in a quilt. That's the challenge that we're gonna try and take on with this panel. What we're gonna try and do is we're gonna try and fussy cut each one of these little vignettes and give it its own moment. We're gonna, you know, sash it and give it its own moment so that we can rearrange it, maybe tell a little bit of a Christmas night story here, but do it so that each one of these has a little bit more room. I think it's gonna be really, really pretty. So given that that's our challenge, I'm gonna grab my notebook here. And yes, it says my feminist agenda on the outside. The pages say do whatever I want. So that's that's gonna be our siren song. Is that. But we're gonna do whatever we want. We're improvising. We're gonna do what we want. And so I'm gonna grab some just a marker here. These are great because they have two sides. They've got like a thin side and a thick side. Okay, so let's see what this would look like. So I'm just gonna kind of like sketch this out. Okay, so if I think about like, let's maybe say we start with the church. We have like this kind of church shape, right? And you can see I'm not being super like specific or precious with this. I'm just making shapes. So if we have a sash around that, let's say we have a sash around that, and maybe let's stick it out here and make this bigger. Maybe we want the whole thing to be sashed. Okay. And then we also have here, let's put the little truck next to it. The little van. This is about, from a scale perspective, that's about the right relative size. And then there's a sash around that. Again, the size and the sash size might be, you can start to see how this might be something that, you know, frankly, you know what this reminds me of? I'm going to turn the page here. This reminds me of one of those like picture walls that people do. With like, here's a smiley face. And then they'll put another picture up and it's a different like proportion. And then they'll put another one here. Maybe there's a big one in the middle. And they all have like this kind of, maybe these frames. Oh, with mitered corners. Like frames. But people put these like together. And then maybe there's another tall one here. This is what it reminds me of. It reminds me of like a family photo wall. So what if we were to do something like that? What if we were to do a family photo wall with the vignettes from this panel, and then the whole thing sat inside a quilt? That could be kind of fun. I'd have to lay it out right because this isn't, I mean, this is just, I'm just doodling. You can even have things that kind of like didn't fit. Or like things that were kind of like added to it that were kind of like we only see the corners of. And then it becomes like a Christmas memory wall. That would be kind of fun. I think we could do something like that. I think if we started by figuring out, like cutting out the insides of these, right? And then making the frames, so to speak, we could then figure out how to lay them out. You see how they're all a little crooked? We could then figure out like how to line them up and lay them out so that we could get pieces in between them. See, like if I kind of like play around with lining them up, now all of a sudden I have like, here's a piece and here's a piece and here's a piece. Do you see kind of where I'm going here? Yeah, I think that could really, really work because then we have background. Here, let me do another color so you can see what I'm seeing in my head. We could have these background pieces be this other color. And then all of a sudden it looks like they're framed photos on a wall. The frames all don't have to match. Maybe just the background matches. I like this. I think this is going somewhere. Okay, so this is what I'm gonna do. This is the basic concept for this improv piece. So I don't need to kind of like plan it out on paper, because with improv, what I'm gonna do, rather than trying to kind of plan it all out, I don't think like that. I have to like get in it and do it. If I try to plan it all out on paper, I'm gonna frustrate myself, and I'm gonna get something wrong. The math isn't gonna be right, and I'm gonna just give up. So I like to play it through. So instead, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to start by fussy cutting and deciding how to fussy cut these panels. So that's my concept. So now I need to make some decisions. So do you see how this tree right here that is attached to this, this little vignette down here actually like comes up over the line of where this next vignette is. So I kind of have to decide if I'm going to cut out just this, if I'm going to fussy cut this church, am I going to include all the way up this tree, or am I going to kind of like chop off the tree, or am I going to try to include more of the tree but then like cut this angle short? I have to think about it a little bit. I want rectangles for everything. I don't want to be cutting like oblong and odd shapes. I want to cut rectangles for everything. So in order to do that, I think I'll start with just kind of laying out the first shape and just starting to get the cleanest cuts I can out of each of these shapes and cut the panel apart. Once I've cut the panel apart, and I'll cut it as generously as I can so that I have somewhere to go. But once I cut the panel apart, I then can look at the other fabrics that I have and see what's going to work for a frame concept, and what's going to work for a background concept. So the other fabrics that I took when I took this panel, I just grabbed yardage of other things. And they are not part of a collection. There is a collection that works with this panel, but I didn't want to take that because, frankly, it's going really well and people want it. So I wanted to take things that worked with it and that looked good with it, but also, were maybe things that were left over from last year or from other collections. So this is just this beautiful kind of like barn red with these like stars on it. Really super cute. We have this, which is like a gold and red. I liked it. I liked the gold in the panel. I wanted to kind of pull that out. And that works really, really well with it, even though they weren't like printed to go together. And then this one, I just really liked I liked having more things I could fussy cut. I liked having this concept of having it. I liked kind of the stripiness of it. And I liked pulling out some of the white. So that's what I have to go with it. And then there's might be some other things for my stash that I could grab or pull as well. Just to give myself a little bit more option. But this is an improv project that I'm going to be working on. I'm going to try and get get these panels cut apart first, and then we'll kind of play around with like how to lay them out. But I think I want to get them cut out. I want to get them framed in a sashing fabric. And then once that's done, I can kind of play around with the layout. Once I have sizing and everything, I can kind of play around with the layout. And it's hard for my brain to imagine a different layout or order for these when they're printed all on the same piece of fabric. I need to be able to physically move them around. Other people would be able to do this differently, but this is how my brain thinks. So yeah, I'm gonna get started doing that, and then we will see you back here with the improv panel project. Ooh, that's good. We should call it that. Now that I'm in like video 9 or whatever, we should call it something. The improv panel project as soon as I get that done.